formula is maybe, I mean, when I was a student, and I was painting my stuff and blah, 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 everybody said, yeah, you are abstract, totally abstract. And it looks a little bit like American stuff. And I was still in Germany, in the academy, for example. And then my first show in America with the Tanja Bonacte Gallery, the journalist wrote, totally German and expressionism, because I don't tape my lines and I have some drops, and so this is expressionism. But the same stuff in my German school, they always said, this looks like West Coast, it looks like whatever. So, and this is totally senseless anyway. And also, I don't believe, and that's the key thing, I don't believe anymore in this kind of abstract world, like we know Kandinsky and this kind of triangles and lines and boop, boop, boop. I don't see anything in this, and I don't believe this. And on the other hand, it's also totally boring for me to paint a photo image and to say, okay, that's the filter of multimedia, and then boom, boom, boom. So that's also boring for me. And that we have so many good results in the last 100 years, that's already done also. I think it's really in between. So everybody should create a language which never have seen, which the visitor or the never saw before. And then you make a little bit sense in the 21st century. And still painting is, of course, in a genre, everybody would call it a very traditional, and 500 years old and boom, boom, boom. But I think it is still a very, very hard concept to find a modern result on a canvas, which is still has also an emotional aspect, or has an aspect for the history, and it's senseful, and it's not entertainment, and it's not whatever.
Sorry. Do you see like your end result as the painting? Because like you were talking about like your artist books and having it on display, but I mean, like, do you think you're
the books are not art.
Yeah.
No,
like,
they are. I call them sometimes. They are doubles.
Yeah.
So they are doubles,
Yeah.
and the double is very nice, but it's not the actor.
Yeah. And so then, like, what I was wondering most of all, when we were coming to meet you, was like where are your sculptures in relation to your paintings? Because I mean, it seems to me like you mostly look at your paintings as the end result.
No.
Yeah.
The studio was, I mean, I started as a sculpture actually, and then then as a student you have no money and nothing, and then you're waiting, then you are in between a model and a small sculpture, you're dealing with this size, and then you think, okay, maybe this should be really 3 meters high, but how can I get this material 3 meter high? It's expensive, whatever. So then I gave up, because I found that this is also senseless to be not in the right size and not in the right material. And then the painting came a little bit better, it came stronger. And then since maybe 10 or 12 years, I feel still a very great luxury to handle my life with the money of my stuff. And then so I built up a sculpture studio, which costs, in a very practical way, it costs you 10 times more money than the painting sculptures. But for the sculptures, I need assistance. They are heavy, and I don't have time anymore to fix really every nail and every screw and whatever. So it's a whole kind kind of bad bank
And I think that
inside my studio. So, and still all my kind of things what I need for my life still comes from the paintings. So
So I think that's interesting what you would say about like the materials never being correct or anything, because with like the Aster here, it's like all painted, and so it's like
I mean, that is still a process since 20 years that I believe a little bit more in this painted surfaces and not really in the material. So I tried a couple of things in concrete and aluminum cast and stone and whatever. But a painted surface is for me very interesting, and still also I find out since 10 years, we have a huge discussion about the old crack sculptures, which were 500 years for everybody was clear about wonderful marble and details, and they could make everything very nice. And now with some microscope things, they find out they had very bloody color, like on the surface, and everybody was very kitschy and so. But it's a very interesting aspect about when you imagine what in whatever in Palestine or whatever in dirty desert, and you have a marble sculpture, it's senseless. Nobody will watch this, only when maybe you have a very bloody pink and yellow, and they have wonderful types of red and a little bit of blue. Always if it's true what the scientists think, nobody knows this really, but it makes also sense to have this sculpture in the landscape and not some white kind of blaster thing, what we believe in our Schaulager depot style. So, but still, back to my studio, my time is 50-50. 50% of my time I spend in my sculpture studio, which I enter every day first, and I talk to the assistants and how we could blah blah blah, make everything ready. And then I go in my painting studio, which is totally forbidden to enter with assistants. So, and nobody can help me there. There's nothing to do what an assistant could do. So I'm.
Well, you do all the painting on your sculptures yourself. Do you?
Yeah. They, like you see the images in the book in the back here. They're waiting for me. Like here, that's the sculpture studio. They're waiting for me as I call them like a prototypes with a white surface. And then after 2 or 3 years, sometimes I know how to continue.
Will I ever, but like you just expressed with your sculpture of having it be in the studio for maybe years on end, like I believe it said Aster was.
Yeah.
Does that ever happen with your paintings as well?
Yeah, the same thing. Yeah. The best results I get after 5 or 6 years in this format. Yeah. I mean, it's a huge format. So normally my favorite size is more or less 3 meters high and 190, kind of a vertical format. The horizontal ones are not so very often, but and then of course that's the favorite. This is my favorite format for kind of key paintings or whatever. Then, of course, I have a couple of different sizes, up to small ones there. So,
how do you feel about showing your sculptures with your paintings? How often do you do it? And
yeah, there are 2 different ways. One of a very perfect show was for me 2 or 3 years ago in London in the Camden Art Center. This was a tour of one show called About 90 Elements / Dead in Jungle. This show was in 3 different situations. One in Dublin, which is kind of an awful space, an old hospital. You have small cabinets, and you have to deal with 64 angles, whatever. Then the second version came to London, which was perfect. 1 space sculpture, 1 space works on paper, 1 space paintings, and in the corridor a photo edition about still life things in my studio. And the number 3 station is the Mudam Museum in Luxembourg, which is a pie bow by the Chinese architect Pai. The 1 space, but a parallelogram, unbelievable. You know, it's not a square. The main gallery was a parallelogram, so you had totally crazy angles. So nothing works like normally a horizontal line or how deep. So and this was the best experience, and I had the same body of work for 3 totally different things. And the Camden Art Center was the best. But to keep it always separate is maybe also not right. But in generally, also in my studio, that's because I'm doing this kind of photo edition. It's in between a Schaulager and a still life situation that I photograph everything in my studio, very exact also, and very photo is like a composition and an image again. Only to find out, I mean, I'm losing totally the game when the sculptures are kind of the illustration of the paintings, and when the paintings have an kind of a stage design background for the sculptures. I mean, I'm losing this sometimes, where I really think, oh, that's the wrong way. So the sculptures are a little bit more hard and simpler, because the great pleasure is to move around, and that's the thing. And even I have the same shape of a house or of a face in a painting and as a sculpture. Maybe the sculpture should be more kind of easy, not simple, but easy, more easy, because you have the challenge to go around and you have tons of different views. And on a painting, I need it very clear, maybe in this angle, maybe parallel, maybe a little bit up or down, because you only have the 2-dimensional representation. So that's hopefully my game, hopefully. I mean, who knows, maybe I'm losing this in 10 years and the sculptures are totally senseless anyway. Could be. But at the moment I have, it's not so bad to do this like this way. And because I have the assistance, the sculptures are always ready first. The paintings are always late, because I am the man.